All right, this is episode 28, you guys. If we're counting episode 28, that means there's at least 28 such episodes. There are more than that. So if you feel like you're not seeing all of them, please let me know. There are a bunch of new people on today, and our group is growing ever so slightly as we progress here. So those of you guys that don't know, when you join the group, there's a PDF that's pinned to the top of our group, and that PDF gives you easy reference and access to all the recorded videos. I shouldn't say all, to most of the recorded videos. Okay, that's a good place to start. And last night we were chatting. I don't remember who I was talking to, and somebody had said, you know, figuring out where all the videos are can be overwhelming, and maybe we should talk about some kind of structure where if you're interested in a particular area that you want to develop, that the videos be arranged. I say, well, it's already been done like that. Catherine Buford, who's part of this group, has already kind of put together a very particular playlist that's a collection of videos that are available only through our group as well as through YouTube. So make sure you check out that PDF. Now, anybody that's been in this group for more than a few weeks or whatever, don't know that this thing exists, just click on the PDF again. The Dropbox is an active link. It should be on curriculum version 1D. I'm about to update it to version 1E pretty soon. It'll be a new link, but that's how we're going to stay updated, okay? Does anybody have any questions about how to view previous episodes and in what order to look at them, etc.? Anybody? All right, great, moving on. So this week we're going to talk about the $1 million proposal. And this is a very painful lesson, but a lesson well learned because this is $1 million worth of knowledge here. And we had a pretty long and robust internal postmortem after learning that we didn't win the pitch. And I'm going to even tell you who won it and how much they got paid for it, etc. Okay? I can't tell you who the client is, and the reason why is non-disclosure agreements were signed. And so a lot of this is just for you guys and just for today's session. So you guys need to keep that in mind. So take as many screenshots as you want, but inevitably the question is, can we have the deck? And the answer is going to be, for this one specifically, definitely not. I cannot give you this deck, and we should not be talking about it outside of this call, okay? And so now, here we go. I'm going to share with you an email that I got from my executive producer, Scott Rothstein, and I'm just going to read it for you. Some of this has been edited for the most part. This is exactly the email that was sent. Here we go. Just got off the phone with a client, and unfortunately, they've decided to move forward with another vendor. It came down to a comfort level from the engineering side of working with a vendor they've used in the past. You've all heard that one before. Mark Posh has responded to that. Is there an incumbent? If there's an incumbent, he says run. I don't agree with that, but let's keep going. He appreciates our efforts, and they all think highly of us and our work. Just not the right fit for this one at this time. So a lot of you guys will start to read into this, and let's have a conversation about it. I'm going to pause right here and get the conversation going. If you've been in business for a while, and if you had to put proposals together, this is not the kind of email you want to read when you begin your day. Actually, this is the kind of email you never want to read ever, period. I don't care what time it is. And I want to have a little quick discussion, maybe 1 or 2 minutes here, about how you guys interpret this before I keep going. Anybody want to jump in?
It feels like he's letting you off like very easy, like very politely. You know?
Yes.
I don't know if he's being honest with you. You know? I don't know.
Yeah. Most people are really polite, especially if you've gone through the effort of putting together a proposal or a pitch deck. They're going to be nice to you, and they're going to say whatever. Somebody else.
Do you think this is an audition for a future project?
Say that one more time. There was 2 voices.
Sorry. Do you think this could possibly be an audition for a future project? Like they just test out a few different agencies, see what's out there, and then they knew that they wanted to use this person from the get-go, but maybe they just want to see what's out there for something down the line.
I think that's like a fishing thing, right? They knew who they're going to give it to, and they wanted to expand who they consider in the future. And oftentimes, and this has happened to us too, when we're the incumbent design studio, is they just want to keep you honest. That you don't take the relationship for granted. Good theory. Okay. I'll take one more. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, at least they responded. That's what I'm used to, is not getting the response.
Is that Jacob?
Yes.
At a certain level, when you're bidding on a 6-figure job, a 7-figure job, they will let you know. People are very professional. There's a whole group in teams, and they feel horrible that they wanted to work with you, but somebody high up above decided not to. So it's always a sheepish call to tell you this. And more often than not, they tell you as soon as they secure the vendor. So let's say they were considering you, Jacob, and Bobby, whoever Bobby is, okay? And they wanted to give the job to Bobby, but Bobby hasn't signed the dotted line. He's like tough negotiating with us. So I'm not going to let you sit down and out until I know for sure it's happening. Otherwise, you are our pick. And so sometimes that happens. And I find that I like to be involved when the project is hot and active and they have to make a decision relatively quick.
Mm-hmm.
And that's oftentimes when we submit a proposal. We're going to know in a few days or a week or so, okay, when we're at the proposal stage. Otherwise, it's a lot of sales dev, and that can take 6 to 9 months. So we need to be sure we know which is which. And oftentimes, I think we're convincing ourselves, listening with those happy ears, so to speak, that there's a real project and it's going to happen. And we can't rush it. If we try to push it, we seem desperate, and we don't want to do that. Okay?
Chris, how long was the sales cycle?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. How long was the sales cycle for this whole thing? This project?
The sales cycle for this thing was essentially 0. And I'll tell you why. It's an existing client.
Oh.
And now you guys are, oh man, the plot thickens. And we're already doing another project with them right now. Now you guys are probably sitting there, oh my God, how big is this client? Well, all I can tell you is they're enormous. They're enormous. They're worth billions of dollars. And so $1 million project is nothing for them. So we're already working with them. We've done 3 projects with them, and we're doing another one with them right now. We're in the process of putting together an estimate for another job. Okay. So we're hoping that this is just a misstep for us, and there's many more opportunities. So as polite as this email or verbiage sounds, it's true. And it's not always the case. Actually, most of the time it's not the case. If somebody said they're letting you down gently, and that was Mario, I believe, and that's totally how I see it. In this case, they're letting us down gently, but there's more work coming in already right now. All right? Okay, so the other sentiment you're going to lock in on, because I highlighted 2 groups of words here, is they've used in the past. They used in the past. So if they work with somebody before, it's scary for a lot of us, and we've been burned a lot, where they know who they're going to work with and they just want to yank your chain. And oftentimes that is the case, but there's only one way for us to win new business. Every client has worked with somebody else before until they come and meet you. So you have to displace the company that's there. That means you have to be more than better than those guys because you're an unknown entity. And there's that expression, it's better to work with the devil you know versus the devil you don't. So now in this case, this was not true. They have not worked with this company in the past, and I know this because I have connections on the inside. They're reviewing the contracts right now, and with really large accounts like this, for some of you guys that are just starting out, they have to get you into their system. You have to sign all sorts of forms and go through all this paperwork and like a procurement process. And so they're going through that right now. That's how I know for sure they've not worked with them before. Because once you're in the system, they don't do that again. So that's not totally true there, as far as I know. It could have been at a different agency, or when whoever is sending this email that they've worked with them, but at a different place. So what do we do now? Now that we've been let down, we feel bad. We can sit in the corner and cry. We can gripe, bitch, and moan about the fact that the world's not fair and these things are stupid. These things never work out. But here's how I look at it. And this is what my business coach has always taught me. Man, when it's really crappy outside, I just want you to know that it's a learning opportunity. And so I created this hashtag, $1 million learning opportunity. It's an expensive learning opportunity I'm going to share with you, okay? Now, before I jump into that part, I'm going to talk a little bit about this new book I'm reading. Can you guys see my face as I also show you the screen, or no?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, hold up this book. Here's the book. All right, I'm going to talk about it a little bit. I'm not done reading it. I'm about more than halfway through. Easy book to read, you know, big print, whatever. And I was talking to Ash Thorpe from the Collective podcast, and also he teaches online as well. And he's like, dude, you got to read this one book. This is it. Read this book. And as you guys have seen my home office before, I have hundreds of books behind me. I have not read most of them. So this is one I'm starting to read. It's called The Compound Effect. And it's based on a very simple principle. I'm going to share some of what I've learned already with you. And it's relevant to the conversation we're going to have today. It's written by Darren Hardy, because there are a couple of books called Compound Effect. The one that you want to get is written by Darren Hardy, and that's his picture. Little Photoshop work there, but that's his picture. And the general concept is this. The core of what he's talking about is, we've all heard this before. If you put $100 away every single month for the next 28 or 30 years, you're going to retire as a multimillionaire. You guys have heard that, right? Maybe your mom or dad's told you that, your economics teacher, your accounting teacher, your accountant. They always say, take X% out of your paycheck every single week, put it in the bank, invest it. And if it returns 7, 8, or 6% interest compounded annually, that thing starts to mushroom. The interesting thing is, if you look at the graph of that, it is really flat for a long time, because at the beginning, there's just very little money. But as you keep adding more and more money in, and it keeps growing, it's right near the end that it does this hockey stick thing. And there's a significant difference between the last couple of years. If you stop early, you make $1 million. And if you stick in it for the last 2 years, it's like 2.5 million or something. I'm exaggerating, but it's that dramatic. So we're not talking about economics. We're not talking about investment, but that's the concept. What Darren Hardy says is that it's not the big things that make a difference. It's the small things. By doing or making small, smart choices consistently and applying it over time, you can have radical results. The small changes. So today, when we're looking at what we learned, I hope not to disappoint you in that there's this giant reveal. It's not a giant reveal. It's a constant tweaking of the little things that we do, what we say, how we say it, and a refinement of our process over time that's going to allow us to win. And we've won $1 million projects before. It's just you don't get to see many of them. So our ability to practice on this kind of stuff is limited. So it's the small changes. That's what we need to think about, and that's what we need to do. And the other thing he said is, if you want to improve anything, track it. If you want to lose weight, write down everything you eat, write down the caloric intake. Track it for 21 days. If you want to increase your or decrease your expenses, track every dollar you spend. Everything that you want to improve, track it. And without getting too much further into the book, there's an example. He says, if you look at all the highest performing athletes, they have coaches that watch their workout and record everything they eat and do down to the micronutrients. And the difference between finishing first and second could be fractions of a second, like in a swimming competition like the Olympics. And he says also that the difference between first and second place is first place usually will make 5 times as much as second place. It's not 5 times as much work. They're not 5 times as good. But it's all those little changes that equal the difference between getting gold and getting silver. Okay, that's the compound effect. In a later call, if we so wish and desire, I will teach you everything that's in this book, as we've done in the past. Okay, so first thing you need to know is, who are you competing against? So I've got 6 or so of these kind of prompts, and I'll answer them. Who are you competing against? And if you guys have a question, just stop me. We'll get into it. So I'm going to use a little thing that Kier shared with me. And one of the biggest breakthroughs he was able to help me with was he helped me to understand there's a game being played. And you either know you're playing the game or you're getting played. Okay, so we're going to talk baseball a little bit. It looks something like this. When I first talked to Kier, we could win projects that were south of $200,000. Anything more than that, anything significantly more than that, we would not win. Our win percentage dropped like a rock. Anything under 200,000, we would win at a very high rate. I'm talking about more than 3/4 of the time. We would just win them. And we thought we were really good. And I told him, I've hit a glass ceiling. I need you to help me break through the glass ceiling. And he said, okay. He evaluated our game. And essentially he told me this. He's like, as the money gets higher and higher, it gets exponentially harder for you to win. And why is that? Because when you open it up to $500,000, you can hire kind of anybody in the country. Heck, you can hire anybody in the world. So you went from competing against design firms in Los Angeles to design firms in the country to design firms in the world. And it gets harder and harder as you go up. This is bugging me, guys. I have to fix this. Why is this like that? Something's off. Anyways, you guys understand that. So we thought we were in the major leagues. We're making commercials for national brands, and we're in the major leagues. And he says, you're not in the major leagues, you're in the minor leagues. And the way that the major leagues plays, this is how they play. They bring in the big guns. They have a process. They have a very refined approach to winning big business. So as you go up one of these tiers, it becomes exponentially more difficult, and it's not incremental. So we need to understand that. Now, maybe you guys are sitting there looking at, wow, okay, and I'm not calling anybody in the Pee Wee League. I'm just trying to give you a sense that there are many leagues in here. If it's basketball, it's the D League, the development league, and Mr. Lance Mayfield knows something about that. He's a basketball nut. Okay, and believe it or not, there's a league above that. So just know that every tier that you move up, whether it's benchmark as $1 million or whatever it is, if it's the size of the client, it gets that much more difficult, and you have to keep upping your game. And you will not win the big work until you yourself have transformed. And so a lot of what our group is about is me sharing with you what I've learned the last 20 years, what's worked, what hasn't worked, so that you can keep moving up. And
you
to
actually
realize,
have to Chris, you have to
Go
actually reinvent yourself each level.
you do have to reinvent yourself. You'll notice something significant, that the people that you're competing against in these tiers, they don't look and sound anything like the way you sound. And I'm going to show it to you in a second. So you have to transform. Okay? So what does the $1 million proposal look like? Well, I can't tell you because we didn't win. But I know who did, and this is who won. Bless you, I think. Okay. This is a company called Instrument. They're in Portland. And I tried to capture their website, but it's one of those, when you scroll down, it reveals each card, if you will. And so I can't string it together. But if you guys look up Instrument Portland, I won't be offended if you look at that while we're talking. You can check it out. But the way they present themselves is very interesting. You notice that it's devoid of kind of visual trickery. It's very simple. And there's a couple things that I want to point out that you're going to notice immediately. Okay. So they say we're a digital brand and product innovation company in Portland, Oregon. We build digital brands, products, and experiences for every screen. And then they show you who they've worked with. And it's a who's list, from global brands to tech companies, etc. Top 3 that they list right there are Nike, Sonos, and Google. That's pretty impressive. It's not like mom and pop bakery shop. It's not of some podunk brand you never heard of. So you know that they're telling you we've already worked with the best. And then you scroll down a little deeper, and it tells you we are 120 makers united by our pioneering spirit. So they're a 120-person firm, and we're a 13-person firm. little bit different. Okay. And our client is in the tech space, and they have a lot of tech clients already, as evidenced by this screen grab here. They've already worked with YouTube and Google. Okay, so what was the approved budget? It's not an exact number, but I had somebody look at it from the client side, and they said it was a $800,000 project, give or take. I think it's north of 800, and it's a 21-week project. Okay, so that's when I say it's $1 million proposal, I'm not far off. I think it was high 800, so it's just south of 900. And I'm going to share with you guys what ours looks like. And there's not that much there. I just want to show you that we've been upping our deck game. And just to give you a glimpse, there's not much you're going to be able to glean from this, but I just want to show you how we present today. So this is the cover. And I think you guys recognize that guy. And then we get into our services and capabilities, quotes from clients, validation through awards that we won. And then this is the part you guys are probably most interested in. So I have 3 slides of this. And this is how we broke down the project. Budget and stuff. Okay. Now this is just a very broad overview. We do have pages and pages of detailed descriptions about what each one of these things looks like, but then you can see how we've approached it. 3 phases, and we just like to put big, bold numbers. And if in case you're wondering, is this backed up by hourly rates against people and time and materials? And the answer is no. It's based on what we think it should cost and what it's worth to the client. And we're not that far off, you guys. If you look at the numbers, we're a little bit high. And maybe that's a bad sign for us, in that we're a little bit higher than a really big company. And we can get into that in a little bit. A timeline is how we present the timeline. And we'll get into it a little bit deeper. And if anybody wants me to go back because they missed the slide capture, let me know. Okay. We try to spend quite a bit of time designing our graphs, our charts, or even the way that we break down the spreadsheet part of it. Because we're a design company, we want to make sure that they know no detail is too small and nothing is too boring for us to make look right and to communicate clearly. Okay? Any questions for this segment? And then I'm going to get into what we learned.
I like what you said about reinventing yourself, because that's basically what I've been trying to do, trying to get the at least the $5,000 to $10,000 jobs, you know, kind of up my game professionally. But then I'm even seeing you guys struggle with that as well. It's just like you got to keep reinventing yourselves until you like reach that all-star phase. You know, it's crazy.
Mario, I've been doing this for 20 years. I've been reinventing our company every 3 or 4 years. It doesn't look like that from the outside, but on the inside, it is a reinvention. And for those of you guys that don't know, Mario's getting his master's degree in the UK right now. And when Mario says reinventing himself, he really just means inventing himself, because he's not even in the marketplace yet.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah.
Okay, so he's just getting, he's not even out of the gate.
That's the one.
He's literally still in school, and so it's quite fascinating for me to kind of watch his development as he climbs that ladder while he's still in school, which is super cool. Okay, here we go. What did we learn? Okay, so there's 2 questions we always ask ourselves when we lose a pitch. And even when we win, we ask ourselves these 2 questions. And if you've ever been a part of our studio when we're doing a live event, immediately after we wrap, we huddle together. We spend about 5 minutes. And the bigger the job, the bigger the opportunity, the longer the conversation. We ask ourselves 2 questions. Question number 1, what did we do well? Question number 2, what could we do better? Now notice it's in the positive. It's framed through that lens, so that we don't say who effed up this job, who dropped the ball. Okay? And part of the idea of the compound effect is to take 100% responsibility for your life, for everything that's happened to you. Until you do that, you'll constantly make excuses for yourself. You'll be blaming other people. If I had only gone to this school, if only my parents were a little bit better, if only I inherited some money, if only, and it just never ends. So
it's a pretty severe thing sometimes. It's very severe, not to be interruptive too much, but those family backgrounds, and sometimes I felt in the group, in a video you said one time, we want to keep out the riffraff by keeping the price high. Mm-hmm. And I kind of feel like the riffraff sometimes. And it's the very hard perspective to let go of sometimes, because family really sets your sense of self-worth. So just felt I need to interrupt.
I'm not saying it's easy to do. If we're easy, we'll all be rich, famous, and good looking.
Yeah.
I am.
Besides plans. You're like, thank you. Jacob, we all come into this world not perfect. No parent as good as they are were perfect parents. I learned that through my therapist. No matter how hard they tried, it's because they're busy doing other things. We didn't go to the right school. We didn't get the right opportunity. There's a million things that we didn't get right. But if we just keep focusing on that, it doesn't open up the opportunity for us to grow. And this expression I'm working on, it says something like, you are what you think about the most. You are what you think about the most, okay? It's like you are what you eat. Well, I think you are what you think about the most. So if you're constantly thinking about negative things, about people who you don't trust, those things tend to manifest themselves. You send out a certain energy, you look at the world for problems, well, problems find you. I'm going to look for things I can work on, that I can make better, and I grow every single day with that mindset. Now, on a different call, we can dive into that. But I'm going to tell you right now, we lost this job. When I say we, it's the entire team, even people who didn't work on it, because the entire team's connected. The receptionist, my office manager, my accountant, my bookkeeper, my financial advisor, some people who aren't even in the building, when we lose, they lose too. Because that's opportunity for them. If we make more money, I pay people more, and we invest the money, and everybody does well. And so it's easy for a person in a leadership position, a management position, to say, who effed up this job? And that's not what I'm here to do. I don't do that. Okay? So let's acknowledge what we did well. All right, so I'm going to go through this. And this will sound superficial because obviously we didn't do well enough to win. So let's get through this. What did we do well? So these are two things, and you need to make note of this, because relating it back to this whole idea of tracking, you need to put into words and write it down and to document what you do if you want to do it better. All right. The proposal looked good. It looks very professional. I'm sure it looked as good as any of the other companies that sent in a proposal, including Instrument. I'm sure of that because we have good designers. And because it was heavy development stuff, we needed to find a partner vendor, and we found a very good one that has a lot of experience in this exact space. Sometimes that's not always the case. So we did find a good partner vendor to team up with. This is not a great grade, but I'm a tough grader. I think we did, like a B+ on the call. Not an A, not an A+. Because we know when we do that, when the clients are kind of just speechless in a good way. We did present ourselves well, and we did appear to be very professional. And that's because we were responsive and friendly, listened well, did our best to answer any questions that came. We met all the client deadlines in terms of submissions, non-disclosure agreements, all that kind of stuff. And we were, in my opinion, within the budget zone. A little bit high, but not double the price. Those are all the things that I think we did well. We had good chemistry in the call between ourselves, and that's important too. Now, this is where it's going to get deep, and this is where you're going to gain the most value from this conversation, okay? And it's going to take some while to get through, so you guys need to buckle in. If anybody needs to use the bathroom or take a quick break for a beverage, I suggest now is the time. I'll give you guys like 20, 30 seconds to do that as we get into the meat of this, all right?
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Hi. I'm just wondering, are you going to go through that portion where they talk about engineering?
I wasn't planning to because I don't understand most of it, to be honest.
Yeah, because that, like, to me, that really stood out. I would have questioned that and said, well, who was it that you were looking for to do that? Because we might have them on my team. I'm confused.
I don't know what you're saying.
Well, if you go back to that, I think it was the third slide where you showed the email.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, engineering? Yeah.
Came down to comfort level from the engineering side. So I'm kind of confused by that. And you didn't respond to that?
We did, but I'm gonna get into it.
Oh, okay. That's what I was asking. If you're
let me share a little bit with you on that. Is that Tina I hear talking?
Yeah.
We're not an engineering company, and they believe that the company they hired is an engineering company. It's a matter of perception and position and expertise. They have 120 people. They probably have more developers on staff than we do in our entire company.
Okay.
Does everybody understand that? Like if they called Tina, they would, and if Tina didn't get the job from Highlight, they would have a different reason.
Okay.
Okay?
Fair enough.
And it's because that's not who we are. That's not part of our DNA. And there's a way to overcome that, and we're going to get into it. But we obviously did not do that.
Makes sense.
Okay? And they wanted one company to hire, not two companies to hire. Okay? All right. So what can we do better? Well, I'm going to start with the kind of light stuff, and then it's going to get deep really fast. It's kind of like the kiddie end of the pool. It drops off pretty quick. Okay? One thing that we can do is we can improve call dynamics. And what do I mean by that? Now, if you guys don't play kind of at this level, everything you do hangs on a conference call, believe it or not. You can go in with winning proposal and shoot yourself in the foot because you don't know how to present, you don't know how to listen, you don't know how to run the call, and you could be on the fence with the client, end the call, and secure the job and beat out somebody that had a better proposal or pitch. So the idea of call dynamics is really important. So if you guys have watched the video when we give a tour of the office and I talk about how we've padded the walls to make it acoustically sound better, it's because when we're doing a call on our Polycom conference phone, we want to make sure our voice is coming through loud and clear, that it's not echoey, doesn't feel like we're 35 feet away and it's hard to listen to. It's not full of glitches and feedback because it's voice over IP or something like that. That's just one of the things that we do. Now, when I say call dynamics, oftentimes you send a 78-page proposal and your client hasn't looked at it. So you and your team have been rehearsing all day for hours, prepared to talk about it, but what you don't account for is they haven't even looked at it. So when you open it up, do you guys have any questions or any specific pages you want us to go through? They don't say anything. And why wouldn't they say anything? Because they haven't read it and they don't want to say they haven't read it yet. They want you to walk them through it, but you don't want to literally walk them through a 78-page document because somebody will kill themselves. So one of the things that we talked about is, what do we do? So we always open it up with, hey, would you guys prefer us to walk you through the deck, or do you have any questions for us that we can answer right away? And they're like, well, how do you want to run it? And that's the first thing that'll trip you up. If you weren't prepared for them to say that, what do you say? And we kind of hit a bump in the road right at the beginning. So we went back and we talked about it. Well, as part of our rapport, we have to be ready to, if they throw that back at us, say, okay, I want to recap the top 3 things we heard from you guys last time, which was you have some concerns about who the team is, there's some engineering specs, and you're concerned about security. Security of the project, and security, the backend server that we're going to design or develop or whatever it is. So let's start there. And here's how we want to respond. And then you would get into it. Okay? So you guys need to be prepared for that things are going to go off script. So you have to have the script that goes off the script. You have to be prepared. Otherwise, you'll get caught flat-footed. Point number 2, say what you think. Oftentimes during the conference call, we think the budget's too low. We think the client's confused, or we're not sure what's going on. And what we don't do is we don't say what we think. And now I say what I think on the call, but every time I'm not on the call, I'm concerned because everybody just keeps looking at me. They write little notes to each other like we're in high school, but they just don't say what they think because they're afraid that they're going to offend the client, that they're being too direct, or they're afraid of their perception from the client. And that's all ways to lose the job. Okay, next. You have to know that you have to surface the unspoken objections. People are very polite. If they think your team is too small, they're not going to say, well, we think your team is too small. Some of them do say that. And I love that because then I can address that. But I can't answer a problem that I'm unaware of. So this is how you kind of have to work at developing a series of questions so that the clients will then reveal to you why they won't hire you. And I'm not going to be vague about this. I'm going to tell you guys how I do it. I just ask them, why wouldn't you guys hire us? What would keep you up at night working with us? And I know this is really direct, but if you say that, if you ask that question, you might have a chance of them saying it. And when I say it that way, more often than not, they will tell us. I'm concerned that you don't have enough engineers on your team. Actually, where's the engineer on your team right now? Can we speak to that person? Okay, these are called unspoken objections. And we have them all. And sometimes it's at a unconscious level, so they're not sitting there really thinking about it, and they don't want to tell you, so they don't even know themselves. Like, you know how you meet somebody and you feel like, I don't know if I can trust you. You seem kind of sketchy, and that's as best as we can describe it. So it's your job to find out what those objections are. Okay? Next up, listen intently. Don't be quick to respond. Sometimes the client will ask you a question during the call that there's no way you can answer. And you feel compelled to answer, but that's the thing. Don't do it. You don't want to give an answer that isn't well thought out. So this is where the team dynamics come in. So let's say it's a budget question or it's a very specific project-related question that you did 2 years ago. And somebody asked that question and that person no longer works for the company. This is where you kind of need to be really honest, listen to the question, and try to understand what's driving the question. Answer that question instead, but it takes time. So we've all told each other during the call, if the question is directed toward Bob, and Bob doesn't have the answer, we can look at Bob because Bob's like, I don't know the answer, guys. That's when somebody else, a teammate, is going to jump in there and try to buy Bob some time to think about it. And that's about learning how to do that together so it feels very seamless and you don't have those awkward long pauses, okay? We have to be prepared to go off the script because they inevitably will take you off the script. And this is about being in the moment and not talking about something that nobody's asking you about. And I've noticed this on calls before, not on this one specifically, but a client will ask a question and somebody in the room who's the person who's designated to speak out about a certain thing will start to answer a question nobody asked. And it's really awkward. It shows quickly how often or how you're not even listening. Okay. Another question that we're going to ask during the call is we're going to ask, how will you decide who you will give this job to? What criteria are you using to make this determination? Because I'd like to know. Is it budget? Is it schedule? Is it the team? Is it previous relevant experience?
Chris, isn't this a question that you would ask like in the beginning, not like during the proposal time?
I try to ask this question as often as possible. I'm just letting you know about this specific call. I'm almost always brought in on the really large calls. I'm sorry, on the really large projects. And almost always just during the pitch part of it, like where they present the bid.
Okay.
You can ask this on your website if you'd like before they call you. It's up to you. But the thing is, I don't want to leave and end the call unsure whether or not we're a good fit for the client. Unsure if we've given them the answers that they need in order to make a positive decision about working with us. So I think we've done all that stuff. I've asked the teams, and basically, before you can do a proposal, I always ask the team, what are their 3 biggest objections with us, with this particular project? What are the challenges? I want to know what they are. And that's usually what we try to answer in the proposal response. But sometimes that's not enough, Lance. Because, you know, people get really good at crafting these proposals. At a certain level, they're all kind of very high level, right? And so we kind of need to just ask. All right, I'm going to keep going. What can we do better? Well, we need to know what the objections are. And so here's a whole list of objections. And these are very common. And if somebody has other objections they've heard before, I can add them to the list. And I asked them. If somebody has a cold,
I'm sorry. If somebody has a cold, could you mute your mic?
Oh, yeah, somebody does. Somebody's blowing their nose. Just mute it. Thank you, Jacob. All right.
Thank you.
Team size and dynamics. Okay. They want to know how big your team is, who's doing what. Are they all born in the US? Are they all here? Are the offshoring part of it? They want to know all that stuff. What's the pedigree? Did we go to the same school? Etc. They almost always want a domain expert. So do you have domain expertise? Is that not part of your core competency? And that's what Tina was talking about. That's not our core competency, and I'm not going to pretend like it is. Are you enthusiastic? Can they envision working with you in the next, 20x days or whatever? And how do you show enthusiasm without being too eager? And we talked about this. Whenever we're looking to team up with a partner or vendor, and we're assessing several different companies, we look to the vendor who asks the really smart questions. That's how we know they're engaged. So if you're not asking the smart questions yourself, chances are your potential client's thinking the same thing about you, that you're not engaged, that you don't know what you're doing, that you're not that interested. Are we easy to work with? Can we be trusted? Trusted is a lot of different things, a lot of different people, but they have to be able to trust you. It's $1 million job. They cannot take that decision lightly. In this case, there were a lot of questions about security. And if you're working on any kind of prototype with Apple, with automotive companies, security and leaks are a big deal. Maybe their biggest objections are about budget and schedule. Can you realistically do what they're asking for in the time and the budget that they have allotted? And if not, you have to be honest about it. Sometimes you get more respect by saying, we can deliver X, but these other features that you want have to wait post-launch. We can do that after, but not during the initial build. And of course, they want proof. They always want proof. What do your case studies look like? All right. I'm going to focus a little bit on domain expertise because this one's going to kill all of us. Most of us don't have domain expertise in the job we're trying to get. Because last time I checked, this group is not full of companies that have 100+ people. that have been working for decades. We're all kind of at different phases in our company. So this is the thing that I want to reiterate for you guys, and something that people that come from a more traditional classical background in design need to understand. They don't choose the company with the best work. They choose the least risky option. Whoever appears to be risky will not get the job. And risky is defined in a lot of different ways, okay? And the one way that I figured out how to address this is assurance trumps experience. Assurance builds trust. How can we assure them that everything they're concerned about will be a non-issue? And we're going to get into that. All right, I'm going to take another quick question break here before we dive into the next parts here. Do you guys have any questions for me so far? Is this okay for you guys? I don't usually like to talk this much, but here I am talking this much.
Chris, you had mentioned that as jobs become bigger jobs, of course, these things become more important. Would you say at different stages, different items on that list become more important? Or would you say it's just a general like conglomeration of them all?
You're talking about these objections here?
Yes.
These objections are going to come as I've done more and more proposals. I'm not telling you I'm some wily veteran who's been doing proposals for the last 10 years. I've been doing proposals for the last 2 years. So this is still relatively new to me. But I'm a pretty smart guy. I see patterns. And if I were to have to like reach into a bag and pull out an objection, this is a pretty good list. It generally comes down to these things. And like I said, if somebody has other objections that is not on this list, say it right now. I'll add it to it right away. This is generally what they want to see. And I can't tell you there's a one formula fits all, because it's not like that. Then I'll just list 3 and say, always answer these 3 and that's it. Different people have different issues. A company that has had really good engineering kind of teams to work with, you know what they want? They want better design. They want better marketing. They want better customer service. Sometimes engineers are hard to talk to. And they want you to write it down in a very specific way, what you want. Then they'll build it. Otherwise, they don't know what to do with it. So in a way that sometimes engineers, especially in the software world, are very binary. And so it just depends on what they're coming off of. And so it's your job to ascertain from the client what the biggest objections are. They don't come to you and say in the RFP, these are our 3 biggest objections, and specifically, these top 2 are our biggest concerns with working with you. It's never that clear.
Mm-hmm.
They give you an RFP. It's got 30 things that you got to include in it. And I tell my team, my staff, you answer all 30, you'll lose. You need to determine within these 30 what the top 3 are. Focus all your energies on answering the top 3. If they can get over that, well, they can get over everything else. The top 3 could be budget, design, and case studies. I can't tell you that it's this generic answer. I don't know. Okay?
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Whose voice was that?
That was Christian.
Hey, Christian.
So is there a way that you can kind of flip domain expertise and make it seem like actually not a good thing?
Yes.
Okay.
We try to do that. Can you turn on your speaker, whoever that is? We absolutely try to do that, Mario, and most of the times we're able to do that. But it is an art form. Okay? I've shared many examples with you before when we were not the expert at it, whatever it is that we're doing, and we wind up getting the work anyways. And that's hopefully as you guys look at this deck and you start to assess your own process and previous opportunities that you didn't win, maybe you can learn something from it. from your own missed opportunities. Okay, so how do you demonstrate domain expertise when you don't have any? Well, this is where we need to develop or assemble a team of experts. What we can do, and this is a strength of ours, we've been working with freelancers, independent contractors, companies for as long as we've been working. When a specialist is needed, we try to scour the planet and find the best partner that does that. In that way, we have a chance to beat companies. And I'll give you an example of this. In the motion design world. So we're bidding on a job that requires some very complicated particle simulations. You know, like when buildings explode on movies, or a swarm of bees hover around and move in a very specific pattern. Well, we're bidding against another visual effects company, and we are not a visual effects company. And they have 30, 50, 60 people who are visual effects artists. And we can beat them. How do we beat them? Well, we come in and we call Industrial Light and Magic. That's a big brand name. And we get a Academy Award-winning technical director on their team on the phone. And then we understand the problem and we share with our client. We've got John Smith, who's won 3 Academy Awards for this thing. We've got Industrial Light and Magic in our back pocket to go and do this with us. Would you like to hire us? Or would you like to hire that other visual effects company? That's up to you. And as a client, what do you think they would say? I can get an ILM, a brand name that I know, or previously I thought this company was pretty badass, but they're not.
Would the client not just say, why don't we hire ILM instead of you then?
I have not heard them say that, because if they could have hired ILM already, they would have. But the thing is, and this is the thing that you guys will hopefully understand by the time this call is over in half an hour, that the job is a lot more than the people who can do it. Now, specifically in this example here, I'm not selling the technical expertise. I'm selling my ability to build the most awesome team and to partner up with our client to understand the bigger communication goal. And this is just motion design, okay? I noticed I didn't say business goal because they're not hiring us to do that. And what they're going to realize too is we, as the team who's going to be running this motion design job, have the ability to tell stories, narrative. We have really great taste. We're easy to work with. We speak like human beings, and we get the bigger picture. And that's our strength. That is our core competency. So what I'm trying to do is to package all the good parts and find them the best partner to work with. And I can't remember who I was talking to. I think I was talking to John P. in the group, John Paletto. And he was saying, Chris, where do I find these designers? Well, I'm like, I've spent the last 20 years meeting and talking to some of the best design creative minds in the world. I have not spent that time looking for developers and engineers. You better believe it that I'm doing it today. I've been doing it. So at any one given moment in time, some random client will call me, a friend of a friend, says, who do you have in this space? And I generally am that guy they call. I say, well, depending on your needs and how much budget you have and how much time, here's who's available and this is what their area of expertise is, and go use them. Here's their phone number.
Hi, Chris.
Go ahead.
When you partner up with another company, how do you sort of present them to your client? What language do you use? Do you say they are your associates or partners, or how do you do that?
It depends on each case. I give them as much information as they need and not more than that. Okay. What you guys don't understand is in the business world, this kind of stuff happens all the time. And there's no need to kind of be all cloak and dagger about it. And there's also no need for you to expound on every little detail and nuance of how you're going to work together. And it depends on their objections. And one of the things is we're concerned that 2 teams is worse than 1. You have to figure out how to answer that question. And it's going to be a little different for each person. But I'm going to give you some specifics in a little bit, okay? I like to tell people what's going on. But I don't tell them every freelancer that we're going to bring on staff because it's not, they don't really care. They hired you to manage it. They hired you to make it simple and easy for them, not to overly complicate them with the details. Okay? I'll get into it. We obviously didn't do a good enough job, and we learned from it, and I'm going to share it with you. Okay? So we asked ourselves, now normally I would sit here and whiteboard this with you guys, and so this is not very interactive, obviously. I have all the answers. It's kind of like I'm asking you guys to take a test, and you can see all the answers in an open book test. So we asked ourselves internally, well, what do domain experts do? What do they know? And so here's the list. Okay. Well, I said it before already. They ask really smart questions. Because of their experience, they already know where the project's going to break, where it's going to be easy, what's not going to go right, where it will go wrong. So they ask all those really great smart questions. And you've never done this kind of project before, so you can't even ask those questions. They're using lingo, jargon, terminology that the other side knows. And this is when you learn to speak like the other person, whether it's about business, marketing, SEO, SEM, about graphic design, about engineering, specs, all that kind of stuff. When you speak a common language, that's very reassuring to them. If I ask you guys tomorrow, we're going to have a conference call with a Chinese client, and we need to speak Mandarin, we're going to be in deep trouble. For most of us, I'm sure there's some Mandarin speaking people in this group. So we need to know what the language, the terminology is. And like I said, we have to be able to already anticipate the pain points, the roadblocks. So before they're even asked, we're telling them this is where it's going to break. So let's be smart about how we design this. They also know that domain experts will push back when the timeline's not realistic. That they don't just say yes to everything because they know it's not going to happen. You can't promise the impossible. And they have abundant case studies of things that are just like what the client wants. They also know what the clear milestones are, and they can present those. And they're good at coming up with alternative solutions, thinking on their feet. So if there's a problem within the scope or the way that the client's mandating how we work, they're going to say, well, I think you want this. That's when clients say that in the past, they actually mean this, and this is how we've solved that. That demonstrates I'm an expert. And they have a lot of additional resources, whether it comes from teams, software, tools, techniques, those kinds of things, they're ready to go. That's typically what domain experts bring to the table. I should have written here like awards and all that other kind of stuff, but you guys understand. Okay. Am I boring you guys? 9:03, are we all right, everybody?
Great.
Okay, thanks, Jacob. All right.
Thank you.
So here's some key takeaways and what we could have done differently. And it's in blue because this is the stuff that I need to stick out. Okay, and we're almost done. I have like 3 more slides, including this one. And then we'll just open it up to any kind of Q&A. I'm a little cold this morning in case I'm moving around funny. All right. One thing that is really important that we understand is we need to be honest with ourselves and be transparent and not front what we don't know. Okay? And so when we're talking to a vendor partner, and if we're calling up Tina and Will, who do some pretty amazing things, but they do certain things really well, and I don't know that much about it, I don't want to get on the phone and say, you know, we had a client and pretend like I know what I'm talking about. And this technique has worked for me. And you can apply this whether you're Mario, still in school, or you're running a big firm. You can apply this technique. And I've used this since I was in college. When I got my first printing job, and a client being a fellow student, classmate, asked me to help them with their business cards. I had never had a business card printed before. And so what I did was I called up, I asked a bunch of people, hey, do you have any vendors, printing companies you like? And then I called them up and say, I'm a student at Art Center, I'm going to design school. I can design a business card, but I have no idea what has to happen for that business card to turn into something real. Do you have some time to talk me through this process? Because I need to help a friend out with a business card design. Yeah, okay. What does it cost? Like, what are good numbers? Like, 500? If I do 1,000, does the price drop off? And we get into all that. And then how do I specify paper and what? Oh, okay. So it's like 18 points is this thickness, and they give you a whole education. And why do they do that? Because I've told them I don't know anything. I don't know what I don't know, so I don't even know what questions to ask. What that's doing is, with your partner vendor, is it gives them permission to be a little bit more detailed in how they describe to you what they do. And knowing that you don't know what you're doing, they might bring up things that you need to be aware of. And normally people don't do that because when you over-explain something to somebody, they feel like it's condescending and it's boring. So what I want to do is give my partner vendor permission to totally just school me, because I need to be schooled. I need to know what the terminology are. I need to know the milestones. I need to know what the questions to ask are. Now, why wouldn't we do this? Why don't we always do this? I don't know. This has been always my approach. I think some of this has to do with ego. Whether it's on this job or a $20,000 job, if you're not willing to tell the person you're going to partner up with, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me out? I don't want to look bad in front of my boss. Can you help me out? I've never done this before. Can you help me out? And then talk to a couple of vendors and find out who makes you feel good. Who's giving you that kind of high touch service? Who's really educating you? You might be willing to pay them a little bit more than the next vendor because they give you the warm and fuzzy feelings. So that's going to be step one for you guys. Anytime you enter into something new, and hopefully if you have a long, blessed career, that you're going to be able to do new things all the time. And the key to that is to be able to throw yourself out there, be totally transparent, admit that you don't know. Number two, the vendor partner should provide the formal proposal with the budget, the timeline, the milestones, the deliverables, project requirements, etc. Not us. Notice in the beginning, I showed you our deck. That shouldn't have been our deck. So if I'm working with Tina and Will at Highlight, why aren't they providing the proposal? Why am I doing it? Why am I just talking to them, writing notes, and writing the proposal myself? And there are a lot of questions there that you guys are going to think about. I'm going to tell you a little story. Early on in my career, I was bidding on really large projects for me at that time, $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 projects, even more. And I didn't know how to put together a bid. I still got work. I was lucky. But then I started not to get the work. And so I had some friends, and they said, call up Karen. Karen will do the bid for you. I'm like, really? I called up Karen. Karen comes into the office, whips out a calendar and a pencil, starts asking me a bunch of questions, jots things down, and within a very short period of time on her laptop has a schedule and a budget. It's a 6-page proposal. My proposals were a page and a half. And right then and there, I realized there was a big difference between me slamming some things together, using some kind of arbitrary language that I made up, and seeing this thing that was a spreadsheet and Excel, and it was really clean and tight. And it's like, wow, every number, everything is accounted for. It feels so detailed. What I learned there is this. First of all, it cost me $0 to have Karen do the proposal or the bid. Second of all, there was a huge gap between where I was and where she was. She had been doing this for a while now. And so I learned quickly that you just have other people do your bids. People have been doing it. Why do you need to do them? And like a pro, Karen gave me the bid and the template right after. And I was able to use that bid with or without her. It didn't matter. She didn't care. She was not threatened by giving it to me. So again, this gets into ego or some kind of preconceived ideas. We're going to get into touching on a lot of these limiting beliefs, these rules, these quote unquote rules that we all live by for some reason that we inherited from some place. Why not just have the vendor partner write up the whole bid? Take that bid in, put your numbers in it, put your logo in it, doesn't matter, and submit it. Okay. And since I have only 2 more slides, I'm going to finish this slide up and then we're going to talk a little bit and then I'll finish the whole thing. Okay. We should have asked this engineering team, what does an ideal partnership look like to you? How should we behave? What do you expect from us? What are you going to do? How does this break? How do our teams work together so it feels completely seamless to our client? Because they're going to want to work with one team, not 2. On the call, what will you talk about? What should I talk about? Should I even say anything? Should you just run the call? Those are things we needed to work out ahead of time, and we didn't do that. What questions should we be asking the client after this call? What more do you need to know in order to build a proposal? Well, why don't we do the call together? And this is one, it's obvious now, but how does this project fail? Client does X, we do Y. This is how it fails? Okay. Okay, guys. You guys want to take a quick moment here to ask me any questions about what I'm talking about? I hope you guys are still on the phone because I can't see you. Anybody? Okay, I'll keep going then. This is the last page of the key takeaways, all right? During the vetting out process, the partner and vendors to work with, why didn't we ask them, can you share with us 2 previous winning proposals that you've used? I want to study them. So even though you're writing the new proposal, I want to compare that to 2 other ones that you've done. It's $1 million project. I hoped that wouldn't be an issue, that they would be able to share this with you. If not, they're probably not the right partner. And I'll tell you something. There's a friend of mine. He's trying to get a real estate client. He said, Chris, he's in New York. He's like, oh, this job, it's probably not going to happen. I feel it slipping away. They want what you do, and I don't do what you do. He said, help me out. We talked a little bit more. And he said, can you share anything with me? I shared some things with them. And then he asked me, is there any problem with me just hiring you to do it? I'll get the job. I'll make a percentage of the job, and you can have the rest. I said, it's fine. As long as I get paid what I need to get paid, I'm good. So I just sent him my deck. He asked, I gave it to him. If he didn't ask, I wouldn't have given it to him. And the reason why I gave it to him was he's out there actually acting like a sales lead for us. I have no problem sending prospective clients our proposal. That's what they're for. Next. We should have said this, but we didn't. We should have thought of this, but we didn't. There were issues about us as 2 teams. The other guys, our team was in Seattle. No, they're not. I'm sorry. They were in Richmond. And we're in LA. The client's in LA. We should have said, should this project move forward, I want you guys to put enough money in your side of things to have a dedicated person come to LA to live and work with us for the duration of the project. There will be no gaps in communication. This will be one company. So I need a lead or a project manager on site at our studio, put it in the budget. there's enough money there. We could have flown out the project lead for the call. It was a modest investment if you're thinking about $1 million. So when you get really creative, and these are things that come up all the time. When we have an East Coast client, one of their objections is, you're not local. Well, how can I overcome that? I can't be local, but I can act like a local. And I've done this before. I said to them, we're going to assign a project manager. That person will come in 3 hours earlier and leave 3 hours earlier. They'll be synced up to your time. Anytime you want to call, you call them. Additionally, because our teams come in later, we're 3 hours behind you guys. Oftentimes, the project stalls out because you're in meetings, talking it over with clients or reviewing work, and we lose hours just sitting around idly, just waiting for you to say something. The fact of the matter is, it's almost like we're working from 7 in the morning or 6 in the morning on your time and ending at 10 p.m. your time. That's a win-win. I can close that deal all day long because what I do is I make the time difference or the distance a non-issue. If I had heard that very clearly, I could have solved that problem. Use your creativity for more than just design. Okay, we're almost here. So the thing is, when I talk to our team, one of the obvious limiting beliefs is we needed to do the heavy lifting. If we're going to make money on this project and we're going to send the entire project out to the engineering team, what are we doing? How do we earn our money? And that is small thinking to me. We brought the client in. We found the vendor. I think that's a pretty difficult thing. Because if the client could find a vendor, they would have. And if the vendor could have found the client, they would have, but they didn't. We're brokering the deal. Do you think if the vendor got paid every penny that they asked to be paid at a normal rate in which they charge any other client, that they would have any reluctance to move forward? Didn't matter what we got paid. And part of that, I think to Kyle's question is, we got to lose the paranoia. If they could find him, they would have. They would have found each other already. We would not be having this conversation. And for the team, they have to learn to lose the guilt that they feel like they're doing nothing and therefore they shouldn't get paid. So what they wound up doing was trying to do everything and being very clear that they didn't know what they were doing. I cannot fake and learn enough about what you guys do in your area of expertise in the time in which I had to do it to prove to a potential client that I'm an expert. I'd rather just bring you on and hire you guys. It doesn't matter if you're a one-person company, if you're a 50-person company, this is how businesses run. I'm going to try and make it really clear and end on a story, okay? Here's the story. Looks something like this. You guys see this? This is a film set. And the yellow arrows point to key players on a film set, okay? And I'll tell you who they all are from left to right. And then I'm going to ask you this question. I'll ask you the question first. Who is the most valuable person on a film set? I'm sorry, in a film production. Excuse me. The person to the left is the first assistant camera, first AC. And they help the DP, cameraman. And that's the next person, the guy operating the cameras, the cameraman, the cinematographer, the DP. In Europe, they call him the DOP, director of photography. Moving over is the boom operator, the sound guy, the guy who makes sure all the dialogue is there. Next to that person, I think is a producer. He's holding a coffee cup. It looks pretty chill. One over from that is probably first assistant director, the guy with the white hair. And they're the ones barking out commands for everybody. They could be the script supervisor too. The one wearing the baseball cap who's kind of looking cool and looking to talent is most likely the director. I don't know any of this for a fact, but I've been on enough shoots to know. And the attractive girl in the roller skates and the bikini top is the talent. I'm going to stop sharing this, but who do you guys think is the most valuable person in a film production?
Is it everybody?
Who gets paid the most?
Oh,
The girl in the bikini.
The one in the bikini, the talent?
Director.
No. The director.
director.
Any other guesses, you guys?
Producers.
The producer.
The guy with the mic or something.
Okay, the guy holding the mic.
Yeah.
All very good guesses.
I think it's the investor that we don't see.
Mr. Lance Mayfield, beautiful and popular and celebrity. Lance is almost correct, and he knows me well enough to know that it's a trick question. There's nobody that you see on here. It's the executive producer. The executive producer lifts no fingers, pushes no carts, doesn't write a single word. And I'll tell you what the executive producer's job is. The executive producer finds a script that they option, meaning they pay a writer a certain amount of money. Could you guys turn off your speaker or something? I'm hearing an echo. So turn off your mic, not your speaker. Sorry. You need to hear me. The executive producer finds a script, comes up with an idea, and thinks that we will package this with this director and attach certain talent to it. Then they go out and they find investors to finance the film. The investors say, okay, I like the concept. We want to invest in this. You got Tom Cruise and you got Ridley Scott directing with Uma Thurman, whatever. We can finance that film. But we're concerned about getting our money back. And he's like, okay, I will get a distribution deal in the US and in China, and and we have this whole rollout strategy. They're like, okay, we greenlight the project. The executive producer then brings on a line producer who then figures out the team and the budgeting and the scheduling and all that kind of stuff. And then they're in rewrites and they're doing storyboards and visual development and all. And this is what you guys see. The person that's worth the most, that makes the most money, is the executive producer. That's why it says a Jerry Bruckheimer film. Okay? Without the executive producer, no film is made. No writer is paid. No director's career is launched. No young starlet is born. None of that happens. I'm sharing this story with you guys to make the point abundantly clear that doing nothing, quote unquote, is the only way business is done. If we don't go out and have a relationship with the client to earn their trust on job after job, to be invited to this thing, well, the partners that we're talking to don't have opportunity in this particular space. They have opportunities in their own space, but we brought them a new thing that is going to boost their revenue. So what we are in the sense of being an entrepreneur is we're brokering the deal. We're putting together the parts and pieces of a complex machine, and we're getting people comfortable with the idea of making it happen. The more successful we're able to do this, the more projects we have, the bigger we grow, the more the other vendors and other clients seek us out for our expertise in putting packages together. Does that sound kind of familiar, you guys? You know who J.J. Abrams is? He's an executive producer. He also directs. Okay? I'm going to end the share. We're going to talk. And I'm almost on time here. I have some homework for you guys. Well, I forgot. Lastly, well, when they're asking very specific questions, we have to give them very specific answers. So we didn't do that. I don't know why we didn't do that, but we didn't. There's a weird red line there. Okay. And when you're giving, and this is the trap sometimes when they're like, hey guys, what would you do differently? And then you start going on a rant about how bad everything is and how horrible it all is. And you don't realize 4 of the 5 people on the call are the people responsible for that work. So don't disparage your teams. Try to focus on what can be improved and keep it in a positive light, just like the nature of how we did this structure in terms of what could be improved. The homework is to reflect back on your own projects that you've lost and won. Would you do well? What could you do better? And in case you guys think this is a lot of baloney, this is literally the screenshot, one of the screens of the whiteboard after we did our postmortem. This is what it looks like. I just translated this in a more concise and clear manner for you guys, okay? I'm going to stop the share. And now I can see all your lovely faces. Okay, guys. Ask any question. I have 6 or 7 minutes with you. My throat is giving out because I did a battle with Mark Posh yesterday, and my throat's wrecked. Anybody?
So how exactly are you going to be the executive producer if you're like 2 people?
What do you mean?
Like, I just only have one other partner and we're just doing all the work right now. That's all we're doing. So do we have to just find new people, make more connections? You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you already know your answer, right?
Okay, never mind. Yeah, I guess I do.
I'm executive producer. I'm one person.
Exactly.
Okay, I go to portfolio recruitment fairs. I read trade pubs. I add people to my database. If there's a video, somebody's doing interesting somewhere, I'm cataloging it in this massive database that we have. All searchable, all with images. All right? Okay, I'm going to mute you. I think you got the loud mic or something, dude. Or mute yourself. Okay, who's up? Who has a question? I hope this was helpful for you guys. And if you're working on a $20,000 proposal, maybe you can learn from the $1 million one and not repeat the mistakes we've made. When I take my eye off what we do, and I take it for granted that the team has learned the lessons, that's when we lose these kind of projects. And I'm like, oh, I can't do that. It's my fault. I take responsibility for that. Anybody?
Hey, Chris. I wanted to let you know recently I finally hired a local project manager and designer for my firm, and it's gone 100% much better just for the client side on every project that we're working on. Instead of them working like, you know, trying to hold a meeting like at 9 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night with my overseas team. It's been such a pain in the ass.
Right.
But it's gone much better. And Mario, I don't do any work at all, honestly. I just bring on the client. I do the contract. I do the sales. It's not much work. I'm probably working 30 hours a month and feeding everybody else.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize there's a robust chat going on the side here. Now I'm gonna have to read that. Holy cow.
You can save that chat for later.
I can?
Yeah, you should have a more and then save chat.
Oh, I see that. Okay, I'll save it for later. Thank you, Kyle. Okay, anybody else? Any questions?
Question. I don't have any questions, but I do want to talk to you about potentially creating a proposal for us.
What do you mean?
Well, we have this client who needs a strategy, and it's, you know, we can give them like, you know, Google AdWords strategy, all that kind of stuff, and design, but they need to go to, I hate to use this term, but they need to go to the next level. Like they want to be the best real estate agent in North America. And they have a very large budget, but it's out of our wheelhouse, what we're thinking that needs to get done. So
okay.
Yeah, that's just kind of what you said about ego. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to ask on the call. I'm going to put myself out there.
Okay. You and I circle back after this call
Sounds
and
good.
figure out what makes sense, okay?
Sounds good.
Yeah. Look, guys, my life in the last 22 years has been about doing pitches, and we've done hundreds of them, hundreds. And we've gotten really good at doing pitches. Now we're doing proposals, which are different than pitches because it doesn't involve free creative work, which I love, but it also means you have to win the work without doing any creative output. So what I want our teams to do is redirect the creative energy into solving logistics, team issues, all that kind of stuff. And that's where the brain needs to be. And if they apply all that wonderful creative thinking, problem solving that they have, and focus on team dynamics, whether it's internal or external, we can do really well. Now, I look at a company like Instrument, they're enormous. I'm not embarrassed that we lost to them because they have craft services department that are bigger than our entire team. I get it. But you know what? I'm scrappy and I'm smart. And I will figure out a way where it might not be on the very next one, but we're starting to get a lot of tech work, and it's wonderful. And so we're going to get really good at talking about the things that we don't know anything about. And then 2 years from now, we'll be in this space and you guys are like, oh, blind. There are always these tech experts. Those of you guys that are on this call will remember there was a time when we struggled through this. When there's a time we didn't have any real estate clients and we're doing a ton of real estate work. I'm not sure if I'm scared and that there aren't any questions, or you guys, oh my God, no, I got nothing for you. Go ahead.
I don't have a question. I just want to say I think we're all just kind of like absorbing what you gave today. It's clear, so there's really not opportunities for a ton of questions. It's just like, dang, I gotta up my game. We just lost a proposal a couple weeks ago, but we don't usually participate in RFPs. It's only the second one I've been a part of, and we did the same thing at the end. Okay, what did we do well? What do we need to learn from? And so it's good to see that, you've got kind of an outline here that we can follow now too, to get even better at that. And so thank you.
Tina, thank you for your feedback and just validation that I did spend the time to make this. We spent probably an hour and a half whiteboarding it, and I spent probably more than 2 hours just putting the document together, not to mention the time in between writing and kind of thinking about how to structure this conversation.
I have a main expertise question.
Go ahead.
Well, it's an issue I'm dealing with right now. I have a client that I've expressed to him like 2 or 3 times that I'm not an expert in like product development or anything or marketing, but that's what he really, really wants me to do. Even though I've said that I'm not the best at it, I can give it a go. But he still wants to pay me and he still wants me to do it. And I don't know how to deal with the guilt of taking the money.
If you have a problem with taking the money, but you're okay with doing the work, you can send all the money to Uncle Chris and have no problems taking the money for doing nothing. All right. That's not a real problem. I don't even want to talk to you, Kyle. Come on.
Okay, cool.
Just give me money, even though I'm not an expert. Even though I told him I don't know.
Well, like I don't want to do a bad job and then have his business suffer from it.
I've never heard somebody saying the guilt of taking the money.
You know what, Kyle? What you've done is you built the trust, and people, believe it or not, they trust people who believe what they believe, and you've already established that you are a problem solver, that you're a straight shooter, you're a no nonsense kind of guy, and you will use the client's money as if it were your own. That did not come from nothing. People do not insist to give you work that you're not qualified to do unless they really trust you. And those of you guys that are relatively new to the group, my Trojan storage clients gave me an architectural design job, even though they know I'm not an architect, because they loved everything else we did. They loved how responsive we were. And he literally said to me, I'm trying to get my architects to do these drawings. I got to move, Chris. I got a company to build, right? And they're not responsive, and you are. So I'm willing to give you the opportunity. I'm like, great, give me the money. Let's move. Check in hand, I'm ready to go. They knew I wasn't a pro at whatever it is that they asked me to do, but I earned that right And honestly, if you guys think about it, isn't that the whole point of you guys being in this business to begin with? That you service the client really well, and then one day you want to do apps and they give you an app opportunity, or one day you want to do album covers. They don't exist anymore, and then they hire you to do that, or you want to direct a music video or a motion graphics corporate video, whatever it is. That's the whole point, Kyle. You worked for that opportunity. So when it comes to you, don't feel bad about it. Embrace it. The only reason why you would feel guilty is because you misrepresented yourself. You said, oh, I can do this. I'm so good at this. I've done 1 million. And you realize, oh my God, I've done none. That's the only way you screw that up. Next question. Give me a real question.
Chris, can I ask about how you represent the partnerships?
Yeah, I think somebody asked that before. We're totally transparent. I didn't show you that page because I don't want to out anybody that I'm working with. We present our bios together. We talk about the two companies, how we're going to work. It's very clear.
I see.
Hey, Chris, this is John.
Hey, John.
Did you talk about the expertise of your partnership, what they did, like the domain expertise?
Yeah. They're just like the company that won this job, except for smaller.
Yeah, but what was their...
They build apps, they build software, they build back-end. They're front-end and back-end developer.
Oh, okay, got it.
So I don't have all the terminology here, but if I had the list of terminology, you guys that are in the development world were like, oh yeah, that they want pretty high-level stuff. Ultra secure. This is not WordPress. Nothing's off the shelf. It's like pretty high level.
Custom, yep. Okay, got it.
Yeah. This is like software engineers.
Okay.
Okay, who else? We're over time already. I got room for maybe 1 or 2 more questions, and we're on bounce. Okay, who else?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Yanmar.
Okay, great. In terms of reassurance, what is perhaps the thing that you do most to reassure the client? The whole concept of reassurance is not quite clear to me.
Okay, I'll tell you how I asked this question, but this is how I ask it in my mind. Okay? How I reassure my clients is I try to think about what keeps them up at night. What do they have to lose when this goes wrong? Where has this broken before? And those are the very questions you can ask. What's going to keep you up at night on this job? Where has this failed before? I appreciate the opportunity. I want to make sure I address these to the best of my ability. These are the unspoken objections. And you need to bring this up. Okay? And I'll give you a very concrete example. For one of our clients, I think it was for Shine Harvest, they make a dishwashing pellet. You drop it in a thing. You know, there's no residue, no stains or whatever, no water stains. And they wanted us to do this thing that was going through a forest, you know, where the camera moves and it's one continuous take for a really long camera move. And they wanted us to shoot in live action. And we just knew it's not going to look right. It's going to be problematic, you know, and for the budget, it's going to be next impossible for us to do. So we proposed to do it using computer graphics. And we were on many calls, multiple calls with them, and I can just tell they were not convinced CG was going to work. We had done a test. We showed them white papers, documents on how this stuff is done, photo projections, etc. It looks indistinguishable from a photograph, these tests. And they're like, no, we're not convinced. And it's because the creative director has been bitten before that somebody sold him a bill of goods about doing CG, and it looked horrible. It looked fake and looked plasticky. So we're down to the final call. I feel like either we're going to fish or cut bait at this point. And this is what I said to him, if I can remember it correctly. Okay? I said to him, I know you want to do this with live action, but we've been in this field for a long time, and I think you like the creative approach. It's just you're not sure. So I'm going to tell you something. As the owner of the company, and I don't like to use those words that often, but as the owner of the company, I'm going to personally guarantee this approach. If you do not like the way that the CG work looks, I will reshoot it on film in the forest at our expense. Deal is done. That's assurance. Okay? It's like the nuclear option. It's the trump card. I can give you no better guarantee to tell you I'll pay for it if it's wrong. And I learned this trick from another director through a story I heard on the street. Okay? Oftentimes directors get too busy. They can't do multiple shoots at the same time. So what they do is they have a young protege that they bring under their wing, and they offload the work to the protege, and that's how they grow their production company. Well, when you come in to hire a big name director or a photographer, you want the big name photographer. And you can't have him because he's not available. So what they do is, I want you to work with my protege, Bobby. If you don't like it, I'll shoot it myself. I'll shoot it for free. Who's not going to take that offer? We get to work with Bobby because you're not available. If you say it doesn't work out with Bobby, you will do it for free. That's assurance. Anmar, are we good with that?
I mean, you went all the way there. If we would
That's
not
what I
want
mean.
to do,
Yeah, if you believe you can do so much, put your money where your mouth is and get them across the finish line. Now, I don't open with that. That's like, you know, like that's a lot of liability, right? And this is what I told my team. We got the phone like, dude, we're going to get the job. And I said, I know we're going to get the job. Now, you better not F it up because I'm not in the business of paying for things. You better not. And they're like, all right. Well, we've been telling them for not weeks, but multiple calls that we can do this and it'll be no problem. Were you lying then or are you lying now? You're telling the truth. You're going to get this thing done. I believe in you. Go get it done. Otherwise, you are lying. If you don't believe in it yourself, right? I believe in it. Last question. Okay, that's it then. Thank you very much, you guys. I will see you in 2 weeks. We'll figure out what the topic's going to be. In the meantime, I suggest you guys pick up this book if you want to get ahead of it, the compound effect, you know. Otherwise, don't worry. If you like learning just through me talking about it and sharing the high-level concepts and you learn that way, don't worry. I will do it, okay? I will talk to you guys next time. Be well, you guys. Go win some.
Hi, Chris.
Goals.
Hi, Chris.
Hi,
Yeah, it's
Paulina.
Paulina. Hi. Just a quick question. Are we reading any books for the next call, or do you know what's the plan?
I don't know what the plan is yet, and thanks for asking that. The first thing is do the homework. The homework I'm going to ask you to do. There's two things, and we haven't talked in a little while. One thing you're supposed to do is you're supposed to think to an experience you've had, a product or service that's delighted you. You remember that? And somebody put that, and you've done that, and you mapped out the user journey. That's really critical. That'll teach you so much about marketing and content marketing that better than I can teach you, okay? And only 2 people, I think, or 3 people did the homework. Out of a group of 140, that's kind of a pathetic rate there, okay? Think about a product or service that's delighted you. Think about how you learned about that, what you did to validate it, what are the questions, what was the driving criteria for you to make the decision to go ahead and purchase that service or product, how they delivered on their promise, and if they did anything above and beyond after the purchase to empower you, to delight you further. And then map that to your own company.
Cool.
And you'll see lots of holes. There will not be a parallel. Okay? I want you to do that. The second thing I would like you to do is, based on this call, after you review it or whatever, is to go back on a project you won or lost and dissect it the way we just did. And then also ask yourself, did I learn the same things that we talked about in this call? Am I scraping as much data and information, the little tweaks? I told you at the beginning, it's the little things, not the big things, that will make the biggest difference, and to apply it consistently. do that, okay? And lastly, if you want to read this book, because this is the next book I'm going to be talking about, The Compound Effect, I would say go ahead and order it today. It's not an expensive.
It's actually on my list of books I want to read.
You want to read this book?
Yeah, I've got it on my list, yeah.
Okay, it's only $16, okay? And if you already read it and if you already bought it, I'll be right back. This is the next book I'm going to read. From 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. And the only reason why I'm reading this book is because when I interviewed Blair Enns for the podcast, he's like, if there's ever one book I've ever read that's made the biggest difference and the one you can take to the bank, it's 0 to 1. All right. I got my new thing. I'm going to ask every person I ever talk to that's important, successful, influential to me, if there's one book that you've read that's changed your life, what book is that? And I'll just add it to my ever-growing bookshelf. And I'll just knock these things out, okay? So from 0 to, it's just 0 to 1, not from 0. 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, Thiel, and The Compound Effect. I'm kind of enjoying The Compound Effect, mostly because I feel like I'm already living this, so it's kind of interesting to read about it.
Yeah, I bought that and lent it to a friend before I read it, and she said it's amazing.
It is good. It's really basic. It's not the most well-written book, in my opinion, but it's just really simple. It's very easy to digest. I think I can make a diagram of the book, which I probably will. All right, guys. I love seeing the new faces. I love seeing you guys come on. You guys can let me know after the fact if you thought Zoom was cool, if the quality of the video is good. And hopefully, once I end this meeting, I can upload this video to share with you guys relatively quickly. Okay? So this looks like to be our new solution. We shall see. All right, guys. See you guys later. See you in the future.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.